Missionary, newly sponsored out of their church at Northwest. The pastor, Brother Darren, was going to be here and he couldn't make it, so he sent the second string. But Brother Lester's here to present a man named Andres Falconet, if I'm saying that right, and he got hooked up with Brother Tim Delaney in Panama, and he's a national missionary there. So Brother Lester, come by our way, and you go ahead, brother.
All right. How about me just standing down here? I think okay. Well, good morning. Good morning. I was just thinking this morning how blessed I am to come back here. Be 60 years ago, October the 2nd, 7th, that I walked in the doors of that old building over there. Remember that days? Anybody remember the days of that old building? Yeah. I walked in here and into a nest of friends, and it's been a joy to be in your life for a long, long time. And I am your sub today. I'm standing here to represent Northwest Baptist Church and the missionary named Andres Falconet. He's a missionary to Panama. So I'm going to talk through these slides. I'll be back over here kind of on the side so I can see them and see where you are and what to say here. You probably know that about 4 years ago, Northwest Baptist Church sponsored Tim and Mandy Delaney as missionaries to Panama. I want to stop right here and talk about Panama for a moment. I'm one of those guys, and some of you are, who's old enough, now old enough, to remember when Noriega was the dictator of the Banana Republic in Panama. And he was a guy that didn't care about God, and the whole nation was basically just a nation that had no regard for God, not churches. And the Lord raised up a man who was a hippie. His name is Robert Creech. He was one of those flower children living in the woods up in Arkansas. But a guy named Tom Harden, if you saw him, you'd never think that he could have done it. You know Tom Harden. Tom Harden worked on him, and he was just out there doing mission work out of Missions Boulevard Baptist Church in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And one Robert Creech and Valerie, with about 3, 4, or 5 kids, to the Lord. And the Lord called him and moved him, Robert Creech, to go to Panama about the time Noriega was being dethroned. In fact, when our government went down there and actually took him out, we were at the Panama Canal to protect that interest, and so took Noriega out and put him in the federal pen out of Canyon City, Colorado, where he's now lived there a long time, and then he died. But I've seen the transition personally, that Robert Creech went into that country not with the idea of starting a church immediately, but the idea of winning some people, particularly some men, and training them. That's sort of the model of that Missions Boulevard Baptist, training leaders. And Robert did it. The Lord blessed him with a man named Cristobal Yanes. Cristobal is a big fish in a big pond in Panama. I mean, this guy's been involved with the government and the public education system, with the police department, the national police department down there. He came to know the Lord and really connected with Robert Creech through that ministry and began to start churches. I mean, they reached other men, and then churches were planted down there. And I will tell you that this month, next month actually, September, Panama has made such a turnaround that it's now a real Christian nation. And they're declaring a Sunday, I think it's a Saturday, maybe a Sunday, in September as National Prayer Day. I mean, to show you what could happen when you've got missionaries who will go into a country with the gospel and reach key people and see the transition. Cristobal's the guy who's written these books on walking with Jesus and gotten into the public education system. And now 6 volumes, I think, one for each of the first 6 years. And it's just gone over that country, and many, maybe even this church, has helped him with that. I'm giving that background to tell you that when Tim and Mandy, he was pastor at Northwest Baptist Church, Margaret and I were attending and members over there at the time. Now, he believed that God was moving him. Now, he said that to me the first Sunday in February in 2018. He said, God's moved me, Brother Hudson. He was in our missions conference just 2 weeks earlier, and he said, I knew then that I had to go to Panama, so he went through all the process, raised some dedication money, and went to Panama about this time in 2018. I have to tell you, I've told Tim, he's made a believer out of me. I didn't think he would happen. I knew Tim well, known him all his life. He's the son of a missionary, Ron Delaney, raised up in Spanish-speaking cultures, speaks Spanish quite well. And I know Tim's personality pretty well, and I thought, well, he's going to go down there, and I just hope this works. Anybody in this room ever eaten any crow? I've had to eat some crow, and I love it when it's this kind of crow. I mean, when a guy does much better than I ever expected he would do. He went down there to Panama, and the Lord just began to open doors, mainly because of this man called Andres Falconet. Andres Falconet had, he was national and had been in mission work for a while earlier and really gotten burned by a missionary, and some things happened that I won't try to explain to you. But he had gotten so discouraged that he really wasn't very active at doing much of anything. Right after Tim got down there to Panama, he's a new kid on the block, and Brother Robert Creech, and Brother Yanes, and these guys are eager to introduce him to the churches down in Panama. So they're having him over and had a conference. And it was in Santiago, and at this conference, a bunch of preachers around, and Tim's going to speak. They're going to hear him. Everybody's going to get acquainted. So Andreas, who's down there close by, well, I'm going to that. But his wife, Gabby, thank God for good wives. Every man in the church ought to say amen to that. Thank God for good wives. That'll help you. And sometimes when your tail's dragging between your legs, they'll kick you in the butt and say, you need to get up from your butt. That's kind of what Gabby did to this guy said. You need to go to that conference. Well, she kind of leaned on him to the point that he decided to go, and he met Tim down there, heard him preach, and kind of liked what he heard. They became well acquainted, and telling you, they grew together. I mean, it's like magnets almost. They said, in fact, Tim said to Andreas, he said, I'd like to come by maybe next week or two when I'm back there. They're both in the Panama City area where Tim was living, and got a place where this guy's about an hour away. And Andreas said to him, how about we just come and visit you? Oh, that's kind of a switch. Turns out Andres wanted to scope Tim out and see. Now listen, church, you're one of us. When you don't believe in the sinner's prayer, you believe salvation is exclusively by grace, you're not a Calvinist, and you use wine in the Lord's Supper, you draw a pretty narrow circle around yourself, and there are not a lot of people who are on that same page with you. Not a very many. They got there together and spent a whole week off and on talking about what they believe, doctrine, straight out doctrine, and found out that Tim and Andres were on the same page. Andres was already there. They were vetting each other what was going on. And they formed a connection there. I mean, no formal alliance except just a personal alliance, a friendship. And Andres had already been in the country these years before with missions points here and there. But when he was no longer doing mission work, those people were out there and, you know, just kind of stopped the works. But he, Andres, said, Brother Tim, I know some places we can go. And he began to take Brother Tim first to a place called Las Margaritas. And Tim told me that. I said, now, what are you drinking there? Well, it turns out that means it's a daisy, a beautiful flower. But anyway, he took Tim with him over there, and there were some people that were already saved and were glad that that was going to get going again. Then out of Las Margaritas, they began to reach out. And First News, you know, had 6, 7 mission points going on in different places, some of them 2 or 3 hours away. You got to know that down there, the roads are not like they are here. You know, you get off the main beaten path and you're on a trail. You're on maybe a 4-wheel drive trail. And some of these are up in the mountains, and there's some sizable mountains down there in Panama. So they began to go to these places, and people were glad to see them. And, you know, they didn't go to nice, beautiful buildings like this. They go to places where people are meeting in homes. They're meeting out under an arbor or wherever they can find a place to meet. But they found traction, and the Lord blessed the efforts. And I will tell you that there are a number of mission points. And I just want to make sure I don't make this a wrong thing here. There are a number of missions points in the area. At least 5 missions points. 2 or 3 are going to probably be organized into a church within, I'd say, the next 2 or 3 years. Plus some new ones that are being planted. So it is one of the most successful missionary efforts that I've seen, not only with Robert Creech in the old country of Panama, but in this area where Tim is working with Andres Falconet. Lord, just blessing the efforts, and people are being saved, baptized. A lot of people are being saved, baptized. So people are open to the gospel. And Tim began to talk to me when I was still his pastor at that time, and I began to fill in and help there at Northwest with Brother Darren Simpson. And I began to hear all this stuff about Andres Falconet, and Tim was saying, we need some help. We need some help with him. The Lord has blessed Tim's efforts, and he has good support from a lot of churches around. And he was able to financially help Andres. Let me talk, let's change the slide here for just a moment. Let me talk about Andres and who he is. You already know some of the background here. Let me see, let's get well, I'll just use this one, it'll work. I'll just tell you about Andres, that like I said, he began to open these doors, and Tim found it. And he has such a zeal, and has such a zeal for giving himself to missionary work, that he actually began to neglect his own family to do it. He was making his living with a cab. You have to pay a good bunch of money, I think $600, $700 to have a cab license, and you have to pay every year to keep having that license. And he, of course, uses his car, not a regular cab. That's what he was doing to make his living. Plus, he could do some mechanic work and a few other odds and ends things to have him doing it. But they got so caught up in the expansion of this missions work where they were, that Andres just couldn't do his work and make his money. And Tim said, well, I need you so bad, I'll help you. So Tim began to help him and subsidize him, pay his light bill and all his utilities, and buy food for their home, and just do the necessary things to live. What Tim was doing out of his own support. We at Northwest helped with some special money from time to time. But anyway, that's the thing that's going on. It became obvious that as the work grew, they needed to have some space. You know, they didn't need to always go to the same church, both of them at the same time. They realized that if Andreas went here and Tim went here, we could expand this thing, and it's just a growing opportunity. So Tim began to talk to me back even then about maybe our sponsoring Andreas Falconet, and it seemed to be a little premature, but it has developed to the point where it became obvious that that's what needed to be done. Even though he's down there, and we don't know him except just through Tim and through Robert Breach, who gives him high notes, and through Chris Morganis, who gives him high notes, and these people who are down there speak really, really highly of him. And we just determined, Brother Darren is our new pastor here, that thing for us to do at Northwest Baptist Church was sponsor him out of we felt like we knew enough about his doctrine, about his practice, about his habits, about his sacrificial spirit, that we could do that on safe ground. So we determined to do it. Just in March, this last March, Brother Darren Simpson, our pastor, took his oldest son, who was just 10 years old, and went down to Panama to visit Brother Tim, visit Brother Andres. Spent a week down there, personally looking the situation over. And I want to say kudos to Brother Darren, because he's the kind that get right in your face and ask you these personal questions, and he was doing that even though he doesn't speak Spanish like Tim and Andres. And Andres mainly Spanish, Tim is bilingual, but he's listening in, and he began to ask Andres these questions, even though Brother Tim had already told Brother Darren what Andres believed and what he thought. Tim said, Andres said, Darren said, I'm going to check it for myself. So that's what he's doing. He starts asking him, and Tim's, what are you doing? I already told you that. Just answer my question. Just do the interpreting here. So that's what was going on, and he, Brother Darren, came back with a real burden that it was time for Northwest Baptist Church to sponsor this missionary. Make him a missionary out of our church. I know you have some experience along these lines with a native, with your Brother Benito Estrada. So anyway, we at the church have voted to sponsor him, and while Brother Darren was down there, he went to these places. And I told you earlier, they don't have a nice facility in many of these places. They're building some facilities. And that's one of the strengths of Brother Tim. He has experience in construction work and is able to go out there and build. They've actually constructed some, you see here's one going on right here that's working in Corpus. And it won't be too long, but they'll have, for us, just a building of this sort would look like, man, we don't have, but to them, that's not the way it is. I mean, when you've been meeting in the living room or in somebody's house in some place or on their porch, and you get something like this, I mean, it's really, really outstanding. So here are just some of the points where you see mission works and works going on, and this is a fairly new one here. This is just within the last, I'd say, 6 months or maybe that plant, and this one as well, El Tigre. So they're looking, that's by the way, Andreas here on the left, I was teaching in the slide just before, you can see Brother Darren there. You look a little tired, for a guy from the States going down there, living in Houston, Texas, and doing the kind of work he was doing, going, I mean, he's like, I'm willing here. So anyway, we want you, as a church here, to consider helping us with this work and this support of this man. I believe he's going to do a good work. He's already been doing good work. He's already a proven guy. He's matched up with Brother Tim. Brother Tim will sort of be the senior. They'll still be working together, but able to expand their efforts a little more in view of what success they're having. And so we currently we have a goal, you can see, of about $2,000 a month. That's, for a guy that's been living off Brother Tim, and with Brother Tim's desire to help him, but the guy needs to establish his own income, and we've known that, you know that, you guys can understand that, maybe. Certainly, we think that $2,000 is a sizable goal, but we think we can get there, and that will give him money. It will help Brother Tim as well, and Brother Tim won't have to be taking the money he has to subsidize this man in the work. So it's sort of the whole thing. And we're at Northwest Baptist Church supporting him, Brother Andres, at $300 a month. at the current rate. We may be able to do better, but you know how you've got so many missionaries and so much money, you have to kind of make sure you don't get yourself overboard too far. So we're giving $300 a month, and we have some other churches in the neighborhood of 200 to 300 total. So that brings him to maybe 500, somewhere in the neighborhood, I'd say, plus or minus $50, 500 a month. And he's fairly new, and the word's just getting out, so we expect several preachers have told Brother Darren that we're looking forward to supporting him. We just haven't done it. You know how it is with us. It takes a little while to get it into works and get it going like that. But this is who he is. This is what they're doing down here, or down there in Panama, and it seems to have the blessing of God and the hand of God on it. And we're just glad that we can be the sponsoring church. Now, I'm looking at my clock here. I'm used to a big clock back there. I don't usually ever get these people to take that clock down. No, we must have miracle power. Most churches have a big clock somewhere, and it's so that everybody can turn back and look at it. When you see the next turn, it's about time. So anyway, I don't see that clock, so I have about 10 minutes left here. But I think I've covered the most important things on here, and just want to give you an opportunity to vet me. Ask me what you think. Any questions you might have, any comments you might make about Brother Tim or about Brother Andres. I will say, we have some plans. Lord willing, we're going to bring Brother Andres up to the States in January. Probably stay in the States about 3 months. They have a 16-year-old boy and they have some other kids, but this is the young one. They're going to bring him. And we've already done the talk and setting aside the money needed to get him up here and back. We would have liked to have brought him sooner, but with COVID, some of these countries have shut down going and coming. You just can't get visas in and out like you normally would. Well, they just lifted that about a month or a little more ago down in Panama, and consequently it gives us an opportunity to bring him up here. The Missions Conference at Northwest Baptist Church, it's an in-house conference, a little different than Rogers, but it really is a good blessing to our church. Is the last week of January each year, so we will have him there for our missions conference, and then stay here probably maybe 2 months, maybe through March, and just go around to any time I'd like to see him and let people know who he is. So that's what the plan is. And I also want to mention about plans that Brother Darren and myself have been talking about taking a work crew at some point future, maybe 15 or 20, however many, just go down there, because there's a lot of construction work, building these buildings in these areas we've been seeing up here. And we think about maybe taking a group to stay about a week and just helping them build some buildings and maybe do some evangelism work, pass out some tracts and things of that sort. So those are what's in our plans. So anybody now have a question or want to say a comment? Well,
Tell us again, how many works approximately, mission works, are Brother Tim and this missionary doing right now?
I would say at least 7. At least 7 works right now. Some, the first was the Los Margaritas, and then the Madroño, and they had some problems out there. A guy in the church or in the group, they're still doing something there, but it's not as effective. But that's the kind of thing it's going to help. Corpus Christi has been one of the main ones as well. So I'd say at least 7, and with this LT breed, that may even be as many as 8. Okay, I was taking the German class at Stephen Austin University a long time ago. The professor got up there, and he gave us this big long lecture about German. He said, "Any questions?" He said, "Well, either you know everything, or I haven't taught you enough to have any questions." I don't know which with here today, but nobody has a question. But thank you for being here, and if you have a question again, it's all one. I would do my best to answer it. As I said, I understand them, but I do have personal experience in so forth. Thank you, Brother.
Thank you, Brother Lester. And I'll tell you what, we'll just take a break before church starts. If you need to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. You can be dismissed for a few minutes. Look alive, people.